Addiction, recovery, redemption. These are survivor stories. You are listening to Shattered.
Today with me I have Don Gillespie. Don, let's start. Well, tell me about your mom and dad.
Now, are you talking about my real mom and dad or my adopted parents?
Let's start by talking about the real mama.
Okay, my real mom and dad were Elsie and Doyle Brown. I was born in a town called Huntsville, Arkansas. If you know anything about Oral Pulvis, that was his hometown. And my dad and him were good friends, by the way. But they had a lot of problems. They were both, I don't know at my age whether he was considered an alcoholic, but I know before his life was over, he was considered an alcoholic.
And you know he was your real dad.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he was married to my mom.
Right.
That's all I can tell you.
Right.
My mother had a lot of really serious problems. At 19, and she was married to two men before she was married to my dad. She was diagnosed, and this was a true diagnosis back then, which it's not anymore, but she was diagnosed as an alcoholic and a nymphomaniac.
At 19.
At 19. So, and I don't know what other problems my dad had, but you know, anybody that would marry a woman that's already an alcoholic's got some problems.
Right.
Okay,
For sure.
So I came from problems. I didn't come from. This wasn't no perfect deal. You know, I was adopted when I was 3. I was taken away from my mother when I was 1.5. The state came and got us. They visited her 1 year and they gave her 6 months. Said you got 6 months. We were adopted in '56, so I would have been taken away in '54.
How many siblings were there total?
9 of us altogether. But when I was taken away, my youngest brother Timmy was still. My mother was carrying him. So there was.
So she was pregnant at that time.
Yes, There was 7. So there was 7 of us at that time. It's amazing.
Right.
You look
she
back.
She kept
and you
having
think,
kids even though they were being taken away.
Right. You know, it's just amazing how we don't realize, but everybody thinks that all these problems we're having now are new.
Right.
No, they're not
No.
new. It's just back then we didn't have the communications. It
Right.
was still happening. Maybe it wasn't happening on a scale that it is today because there's more people, but it was still happening.
Right.
So it's just kind of sad that we got caught up in that. My oldest brother was already 14, so he didn't. He was a half brother. My 2 half sisters, and then Charlie, who's the oldest of us 3, and then Jimmy, and then myself were taken from our mom. There was 5 of us taken that day. Sisters were put in a foster home, and we 3 were adopted by the Gillespies, and that's how I got to decoying, and that's how, as they say, the rest is history. Anyway. My history has not been very good because I followed in my mother and dad's footsteps. You know, it's pretty much a given that mental illness is hereditary.
Right.
And some of us...
So was addictions.
Yes. I wouldn't say it's hereditary addiction, but it is, you're predisposed.
Yes.
And being predisposed to alcoholism and drug addiction, pretty tough, okay?
Right.
It's hard to be able to say, you know, what was her name? Nancy Reagan, she said, just say no.
Right.
Well, it's real hard to say no when it is something you know is good for you that you need to deal with your mental problems.
Right.
You know, and you know that at a young age. People say, well, when did you become an alcoholic? I didn't start drinking until I was 14, but I was an alcoholic and a drug addict from maybe at 1.5 when I was taken away from my parents.
Right.
You know, who knows?
Did your mom drink when she was pregnant with you? I mean, was she that bad of an alcoholic?
Well, she was at 19, and mine was born when she was 30. So I would imagine, yes, she drank while we, you know.
Right.
I don't know for a fact.
Right.
I know she smoked. So, you know, most people that drink smoke. It's just part of it. Yeah.
So your first drink was at 14?
Yes, out in front of a place called Frank's. It was a little hangout. Frank had built a bowling alley, and the bowling alley had gone kaput, and he had this little kids hangout called Frank's on the upper end. It was the Western Plaza. It's now Mary Pops. But where you go in the door, you go in this door, that door to the left, that was Frank's, and you went in there. And they had the other end closed off.
Right.
But we were just boys being boys, and some guy said, I'll run over and get some beer, and he was old enough to get it. And so we all pitched in $2 or $3, and I got 3 beers out of a case. And back then it was 24. There wasn't 30 packs. Right. It was just 24. And I got 3 beers. I didn't get drunk, I don't think. I don't know what drunk was, you know. But I do know one thing. I liked the way it made me feel, and I knew I was going to do it again as soon as I could.
Right.
I was 14, had a grit paper out, and did some things around the house, had a little bit of an allowance, but you can't buy booze on an allowance, you know. So I didn't get drunk for the first time until I got out of boot camp when I was in the service. And that's the first time I really got sloppy drunk and passed out, which really made me understand that this stuff is really good, because what it'll do is it'll make me go to sleep or pass out. And that's really what I was after, was to pass out and not have nothing in my mind at all. It was zero. I didn't wake up with a panic attack. I didn't wake up with problems of wondering where I was at and all those things. I was okay.
And before that, you did have panic attacks.
Oh yeah, I banked it when I was younger. I didn't know what they were.
Right.
And nobody had told me what they were. Matter of fact, I didn't even find out about a panic attack until 1985. So that was the first time somebody said that you've had a panic attack.
Right.
And that all came out of, I went to bed one night and woke up about 11 o'clock and looked over at my wife, and I told her, I'm going to the hospital, I'm dying. Drove to the hospital myself.
Because you think you're having a heart attack.
Well, yeah, your heart's beating real hard, and that's what they thought when I got there.
Right.
They thought because I had a heart rate of, I imagine it was over 60 or 70 beats per minute, and I don't know if that's great or not, but they could tell that I was, could go into cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. So they put all this stuff on me, and did all this stuff. And that was, I guess, for about an hour and a half. And the doctor finally came in and he said, take all this stuff off of him. And you know what I thought? I thought, man, if I die, I'm going to sue you. But anyway, it's funny how our minds work, right? But anyway, so come to find out, he said it's just a panic attack. You're really not in any danger.
Which is a relief to find out you're not having a heart attack.
At that time, I guess it should have been.
Right.
But I didn't know enough about any of this
to
be able to put that into, so I went home feeling like, I could still die any minute, So.
Right.
and there's a lot that goes along with that learning curve. You don't just learn it all at once. Boom.
Right.
Anyway, but after 14, I drank when I could. You'd go and people would give you a booze or give you a beer or whatever. And let's see, I was 16 years old, and I quit school. And I walked to my dad's store. My dad had a store here in town. And I said, Dad, I want to quit school. And my dad was a pretty wise person. He'd been around the world, had been in the service, was in World War II. So it wasn't like he didn't understand where a young boy was coming from, okay? And he said, you've already quit, haven't you? I said, yeah, I quit before I walked in. He said, okay, tell you what we're going to do. He said, top floor of the courthouse, they're giving a GED. And he said, Monday morning, I want you to start that. And he said, I want you to pass it. As soon as you get through with that, I want you to find a recruiter. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or Coast Guard. You're not laying around my house.
Right.
So the day I turned 17, I went in the service. And he signed for me and, and all that stuff.
You joined the Navy?
The Navy, yeah. And they told me when I signed or said that I would go, that you were going to go to Little Rock, and one day you were going to have a test, and the next day you were going to have your physical, and then I was going to come home for a month. So I did the test, and the next day we did our physical, and it was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was standing against the wall. You know, I don't know if you know anything about the military, but you just get in line.
Right.
Everything's a line, whether it's getting shots, whether it's going to chow, whether you're just in a line. So we were all standing on the wall, and this, I guess he was probably a first-class petty officer or second-class, whatever. He comes down through there and he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was number 8. Y'all go in that little room. So we went in that little room, you know. We raised our hand. 10:30 that night, I was in boot camp in Orlando, Florida. So, yeah. But you know what? Now that I think back on it, it was the best way to do it. Because if they'd have sent me home for 30 days, I might not have showed back up. So it was
you would
best
have
that
had a chance to change your mind.
I think the powers that be knew that I had some problems with showing up on time. And so maybe it'd be best for me just to go right now.
Right.
And, you know, but anyway, when I got out of boot camp, while we were in boot camp, I couldn't drink, you know. But as soon as I got out of boot camp, they sent me to Middleton, Tennessee. That was where my A school was at. And A school is like, in the Army, you go to AIT,
Right.
Advanced Infantry Training. Mm-hmm. Well, in the Navy, you go to A school. That's your what you're going to learn, what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And I had gone in the service thinking I was going in the nuclear program. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen because I'd have been on a nuclear sub, and that wouldn't have worked because me being caged up in that thing, somebody would have had to raise it up every once in a while, let me pop my head out so I could breathe.
To breathe,
you know? So anyway.
Claustrophobia.
So maybe it was best that I didn't get that too, you know. But I went to A school for aviation motion mate, and what that is we work on the flight deck on the aircraft carrier, and you when you start out, you're just tying down planes and doing stuff like that. But of course, as you advance in your learning and training aboard the aircraft carrier, they let you do other things.
Right.
And some people get to wreck aircraft, some people get to work on resting gear cables, some guys on the catapults. Just different. There's different areas of being a aviation boatswain mate, and I don't even know how it happened, but I ended up in crash and rescue. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
We go places and we do things, we say, how in the heck did that happen? I can't remember. But anyway, that's what I did. I ended up in crash and rescue. And while I was there, I guess I felt it gave me a feeling of exhilaration to go and do some of the things that I did. Rescuing pilots from crashed planes.
Right.
Going out and sea and rescuing a guy that had gone down at sea, you know. It's fun.
And they're glad to see you, for sure.
Well, yeah, but the way I feel is that I'm getting to get that exhilaration that I need,
Adrenaline
that
is
adrenaline
pumping.
rush that I need, see. And, but that's not to say that I didn't drink, okay?
Right.
That's to say that I didn't drink anything that was legal. Or what we would do, we would take our little raisin. We got it at breakfast, we'd have raisins, put on our cereal or whatever. Well, we would get all those we could and take them down to a guy in the engine room, and he would make Raisin Jack. You know what Raisin Jack is?
Well, is it hooch?
It's hooch. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But it's made out of raisins, okay?
Hooch is hooch, though.
What is a friend of mine said? You just got to have a little fruit and a little sugar, and you can make some boots. Anyway, so it's kind of funny. We drank. I drank the whole time I was at sea, you know, simply because we had. That's amazing how the things that we did or we had to do so that we could drink, you know. And people say, how do you know you're an alcoholic? Man, when you save them little raisin boxes, every 8 or 10 of them every morning so you can take them down to...
Don't even eat breakfast so you can...
There's something wrong with you, okay? And it's not very hard to figure that out, you know. Of course, I didn't even think of that. I didn't have a problem. There was a lot of guys who did it, so
Right.
what's the deal, you know?
Yeah.
No, the whole ship wasn't doing it, but there was a bunch of us that were, so
Right.
it was okay. It was, and that's the thing about alcoholism. It sneaks up on you. It doesn't. It's not. Nobody takes their first drink and thinks, "Oh, I want to be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I want to beat on my spouses. I want to be mean to my kids. I want to take their money. I want all that stuff." You never think of that.
Right.
All you think about is, and I believe that my drinking was self-medicating. It was to keep me from not blowing my top and doing something stupid
Right.
that would have sent me to prison. And I was afraid of that. You know, my dad he was the kind of person that he was afraid of prison. And so he drilled it into that was my adopted dad. Not my real dad, but my adopted dad.
Right.
And he drilled that into us and drilled us into it. I didn't want to go to prison, okay? Because I had heard some horrible stories,
Right.
you know. But anyway, that's probably what kept me out of prison, was that I was able to drink and drug. Got out of the service, and I just drank in the service, okay? But when I got out of the service, I had married a girl. We got married. My first marriage was July the 3rd, 1972. And I was in the Navy. I hadn't gotten out yet. And we moved to Pensacola. I was at that time I had left. I'd come out of sea duty and they put me land-based. But I was aboard a ship. I couldn't figure that out. How do you go aboard a ship and you're land-based?
Right.
But anyway, we went out in the Gulf of Mexico, and the guys from Corpus Christi would come and land aboard the aircraft carrier.
Right.
And then we would go back to Pensacola. We might be out 2-3 weeks at a time. Then we went back in. It was considered land-based.
Right.
It wasn't sea duty. So anyway, but and I did pretty good in the first of my marriage. Moved to Mobile, Alabama. She was from a little town called Theodore, which is just west of Mobile on Highway 90. And her dad was an alcoholic. Funny how we picked
Right.
the same daddy that we had. We'd pick it, and our husbands. But anyway, so I started drinking and drugging, staying away from home, you know, the whole gamut. And finally, I met a guy, and he had, do you know what old white horse is? Heroin? He had heroin, and he said, it's even better than alcohol, you know, because, you know, alcohol is a barbiturate, it's a downer, you know. So, and I started experimenting by snorting heroin. You know, you don't ever start by shooting, you snort first, you know, because that shooting just looks a little bit more than you can handle, you know. You got to heat it up. I mean, it's all with spoons, there's all kinds of stuff you got to do, and I didn't want to be involved in that. Of course, then I would have said I was an alcoholic, right? I mean, excuse me, a drug addict.
Right.
But as long as I'm snorting, I'm not a drug addict.
Right.
Recreation, I used to tell people I recreationally did heroin. So anyway. And
Made it sound better.
Well, of course, you know. Because I could imagine a heroin addict as somebody was down on his luck. He's sitting on the street, and he's got a $500 a day habit.
Yeah.
And back then, $500 was a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was in 1972, okay? So, but that's how I became a drug addict. You know, people say, well, there's no difference in drug addict and alcoholism. Well, they keep them separated. You got NA and AA, so they do keep them separated, you know?
Your first drug that you tried was heroin.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first drug I tried, and I snorted it, like I say. You
Right.
know. It's kind of unusual that I would take off on heroin. Most people end up on heroin, but I got it, you know. But because that's what I met. I met a guy that was a heroin addict, you know. I look back at this and I go, Don, that's not how it's done, but that is how I did it. So, of course, alcohol was always involved in this.
Right.
I didn't ever get off alcohol. I just supplemented my alcoholism with this drug addiction thing. That went on. Of course, my first wife and I stayed together 2.5 years. You wonder why?
Yeah.
Uh,
Did she drink?
No, no,
No.
no.
So
Good
that
Christian
was-
girl.
right.
Okay. Yeah, it just didn't work out between us at all. I like staying out sometimes 2 or 3 weeks and not coming home, not bathing, and it just
Right.
didn't fit
She
with her
didn't
at all.
appreciate that.
No, she does not have a sense of humor. It's nobody gets married and says, "Well, now I'm going to ruin this thing."
Right.
You imagine all these wonderful things that are going to happen to you, and never in there is included being unfaithful or being
Yeah.
an alcoholic or being a drug addict
Yeah.
or any of those things are never thought about. And of course, I'm no different than anyone else. I didn't think about those either, and I didn't care. And when they happened, I just did them. It wasn't like it was a planned thing or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to hurt her, but that's how it happens.
Right.
And of course, I've been married 5 times, and nobody has to ask why that happened. But I can find a woman. I just can't keep a woman. So, but I could do that with a job too. I could find a job, just couldn't keep one. It's amazing, and it's funny. It really is. Now that I look back, it's funny. But at the time it was happening, it wasn't funny. There was a lot of people who got hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't have any children from my first or second wife, thank goodness. My second wife was a girl from here in DeQueen, and she still lives here. She's married to a guy now, and her life is good. So, but anyway, I was working a chicken plant here in DeQueen, and working with a guy named Jim Swarthout. And Jim was from Kansas. And anyway, one night he was working in Chilpack and I was working cleanup. And they asked me to take some boxes over to the box room. I don't know if you know where the box room is, but it's up on top. And I'm not real clear on exactly what happened, but the next day in the plant manager's office, I was either fired or quit. I can't remember which happened. But
You no longer had a
But I no
job.
longer had a job at the chicken plant, and Jim too, because he's the one that got me to take the boxes over there. And so he should have taken the boxes over, but he got me to do it. So anyway, we both got fired. So we came back to the Western Motel, which is behind the.
And why? Was there something in the boxes?
No. I was just putting them up in there, but I tore part of the roof off.
Oh.
It's a forklift, and it raises up and goes
You
through a
done
hole in the
damage.
roof.
Right.
Well, I didn't bother to let it back down. I just pulled out and tore part of the roof off of the building. So
Oh, I
that's
see.
why I got fired. Anyway, and
Or-
Jim got
or
fired
quit.
because he told me to do it. Anyway, so that day we talked about it, and I think it was the next day we left here going to Coffeyville, Kansas, and that's where I met my third wife. Of course, alcohol and marijuana and whatever else.
Right.
My drug of choice is whatever you got. I don't like paying for stuff, and when you're an alcoholic and a drug addict, somebody else is going to support your habit.
Right.
That's just all there is to it. I'll steal your battery out of your car, steal your battery out of your lawnmower. I'll just steal your lawnmower. Keep
You'd
the key
steal
in it.
peanut butter
You okay
and
with
jelly.
me? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll steal whatever it takes to get what I need. An alcoholic and a drug addict are liars, cheats, and thieves.
And
There's no two ways about
narcissistic.
it. Yeah, most of us are narcissistic simply because, you got to be a little bit intelligent to get some of this stuff done that you got to
Right.
do, and the stuff you get out of.
Right.
So I'm not bragging on them. I'm just saying that's the way it is. We're very intelligent people. We're not fools at all.
Yeah.
But we don't use our brains. We try to let this addiction and alcoholism just take over our lives.
Right.
Well, anyway, we were married 13 years. Maybe she has some problems too, but anyway, I'm not sure. And I had 3 children with her. Used to come home on Friday, stick $10 in each one of them's piggy bank, Give my kids an allowance, Monday morning, I'd broken up the piggy bank to get that $30 out so I could go get me whatever I needed for, and I don't know how many times I did that. And
Right.
then at the end of my drug addiction,
You
alcoholism.
had good intentions, but then the addiction took over.
Yeah, and as I look back, I thought, I wonder why my kids don't like me. Well, shit, you're taking money off of
Right.
them. You know, what are you doing? You're stealing
You're an
from
Indian
them.
giver.
Yes, you're stealing from them, okay? Anyway, that rocked on for 13 years, and then in 93, she divorced me. I'd been to treatment. I've been to treatment 7 times. At that time, I'd only been to treatment 5 times.
Would you
And,
go to like a 30-day treatment
yeah,
center or something?
Either that or, and I'm counting treatment as 30-day or 45-day, whatever they were.
Right.
But I went to so many detoxes, it wasn't funny. You know, I just detox you for a couple of weeks and it sends you down the road.
And that really
I usually
doesn't
try
work.
to find a girlfriend at one of those places. But anyway, that's another part of this deal. We have a fatalism that's just it's chronic, you know, and
And that's probably not the best place to go hunting for a companion.
oh, you don't understand, do you? Anyway, women can get stuff that you can't get simply because of their albions, you know. And so you always want to pick a girl that drinks or drugs because then she can get the stuff
Help
for you.
you get, yeah.
Yeah. And if she has a brother who cooks like dope or whatever, that's even better, you know, because he'll give it to his sister when. Anyway, left Independence after she divorced me and came to northern Arkansas. Had a brother. Of course, all my family, my real family, lives in northern Arkansas. And so got me a place, went to work at a turkey plant. You know, you can get a job at a turkey plant. You know what their physical is, don't you? Oh, your heart's beating. Anyway, so went to work in this turkey plant, and let me say this. In 1985, when I went to the doctor, he gave me a pill that would help my
Panic attacks.
and my anxiety. I don't know if you know what it is. It's called Xanax.
Yes.
Well, when an alcoholic has Xanax,
Oh.
he does not need alcohol. Okay. Matter of fact, it says on the bottle, "Don't drink and use this product, this drug." Anyway, me being the resourceful human being that I am, I was able to find a way to get my drugs cheaply. Okay, my Xanax, and like I say, I had moved over to Huntsville, and brother couldn't deal with me. I was in pretty bad shape anyway, and I was working. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was working, but and I had my own place, but the things I did in public sometimes got back to my brother, and oh man, I can't deal with this, you know.
Right.
So he told me one day, he said, "I'm going to take you over to the VA," and so that's what I did. I let him take me over to the VA, and that started this deal of me getting my disability and all the things that ended up happening to me because it didn't take him long to diagnose me. And funny thing about my drugs is when they took me into the VA and started treating me, they asked me, he said, "Don, where's your stash?" It was a social worker, Dan Hammer was his name. He worked at Fayetteville at the VA. He said, "Where's your stash at?" And I thought, "Hell are you talking about? I ain't got no stash." He said, "Anybody that's been on Xanax has been on Xanax 8 years." He said, "Anybody that's been on Xanax as long as you have has got a stash. Now tell me where it's at." I said, "It's probably in the back of my car over at the Crossbow Restaurant in Huntsville. That's where I left my car." So anyway, we went over there, and I had quite a few 2 milligram Xanaxes, probably more than the drugstore keeps on hand at any one time.
Lord.
Okay, yeah, we're talking hundreds here, not.
And you didn't sell them. You kept them hoarded for
they're
your
for
own
me.
person. They're for you.
No. Now I might help a guy out.
Yeah.
You know, he'd say, "Well, I need. You know, I might help a guy out," but no, they weren't to sell. This wasn't income. This was for me. Okay, and I didn't ever want to run out because I knew that my problem was. But anyway, they detoxed me there. Well, it's a long story, but they did everything they could for about 7 days, 8 days. I was there about 20 days, but they finally sent me to Little Rock, to the VA in Little Rock, and I was going to go through some programs. Anyway, I got down to Little Rock, and they let me drive my car from Huntsville to Little Rock. And, I told you, we poured all those out in all those Xanax. Oh, but two.
You had another stash.
No.
You had two.
When we were pouring them out, I got two.
Oh, you got two then.
Yes, ma'am. And, of course, on the way down from Huntsville to Little Rock, I took them, So when I got to Little Rock, first thing they did was test me, Uh-oh. So they put me back to a treatment program, and that was, let's see, what was that? That was just a regular, was that just a regular treatment? Yeah, that was just a regular treatment. And then they put me in a halfway house. And I left there and went home. But I realized then that I had to start trying to find something else to do with my life because all of this was starting to affect my health.
Yeah.
And I was getting to a point where my brain wasn't working right. I'd actually short circuit sometimes, and that wasn't good, And I knew it had to be something. I was way too smart to just blake out myself.
Right.
So it had to be the drugs and alcohol. So I realized I had to start, and that was kind of the starting. That was in '94, and by '97, I'd been to a PTSD program in '96. I can't remember what else happened, but of course I drank. Anyway, drinking along
You're still
the way.
drinking, yeah.
Oh yeah, and still not drugging as much, but guys always got pills. You just take them. You don't pay attention to what they are. Just something to zone out. So in '97, I'd gotten out of the hospital and wanted to go up and see my kids in Kansas. So, by then, I need to tell you what happened to me. In February of '97, they gave me my disability. And my first check was $67,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got 5 years back pay. So, guess what I did? I bet you can guess. I went and got drunk, okay? I left the house, and that was my fourth. I was married to my fourth wife by then, okay? I met her at the VA, and I knew she would understand, right?
Right.
Yeah. But she was there at the VA. She was being cared for by the VA because she had a mental problem called bipolar, okay? I didn't consider that as being, I figured I'd get around that, right? I didn't. Anyway, after I got my disability, did a lot of good things for her, paid off for trailer, paid off, I bought a car, I bought a truck, and so we fell apart because I started drinking heavy again. And like I say, I left the house to eat lunch, and, I can't get drunk if you're eating and drinking, right? I mean, because the food will absorb the alcohol, right? Yeah. Well, no, that's not true. Anyway, because I'm an alcoholic, okay? But did some things, went up and visited my kids, but anyway, ended up back in Little Rock. And one night I drove over to Hot Springs to go to a bar over there with my brother-in-law. I had a brother-in-law that was staying in an RV, ex-brother-in-law from my third wife. Anyway, Ray and I we went to a bar. I was coming home from Hot Springs. I was on I-30 and pulled my truck over to the side of the road. Got sick or whatever. And I remember kind of putting my head on the steering wheel and I either went to sleep or passed out or whatever. But I wasn't there very long because it was April of the year, and I had my windows down. And when I woke up, I remember looking out my windshield. You know what a 1,000-yard stare is? That's where you look as far as you can out there, and it don't matter what you're looking at. It's just a stare,
Right.
you know. And I looked out at the 1,000-yard stare, and I remember saying, God, you don't have to stop me. I like this too much. And I started my truck up and went on into Little Rock where I was staying. About 2 weeks later, I was in a bar. I don't know if you've ever been on I-40 coming out of Little Rock, but there's a little town called Maumelle. And on that frontage road, you'll see a place called Visions. It's a bar. You have to go on the frontage road to get to it. But anyway, and it's still there. Or the last time I went to Conway, it's still there. Anyway, I was in that bar and drinking, and you understand this is a girly bar. And I was sitting at the bar with my back to the entertainment. I was strictly drinking because that's what I wanted to do. And somebody came in and sat down beside me. And I looked over, and it was a guy I recognized from AA because I'd been going to AA meetings, you know, all this time. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing here? He didn't answer me. Well, I don't know if you know it or not, but when I'm drinking, I'm real important. And you don't not speak to me. When I speak to you, you speak to me. Or we'll have a little altercation because I already know what jail's all about, and I've been there a bunch of times. And if you're going to be the one that takes me today, well, so be it, you know. So anyway, he second time I asked him, he didn't answer me, and boy, I was getting riled up now, you know. And finally, I asked him one more time, and he turned me in my stool. I was on a stool. He was too. He turned me on that stool, and he looked me right in the eyes, and he said, I came here to take you to an AA meeting. I got up. If you'd have told me that was the last beer I was ever going to touch, I'd have called you a liar. Went to the AA meeting, heard some things I liked there that night, but I've never touched another beer, booze, drugs, nothing. I was off drugs then, but I still was drinking. So, but that was my last. It was April 1997, and I haven't had a drink since, or any other mind-altering substance. I've had to deal with life as it comes, and it's not that bad, you know. I believe that one of the most important things I ever heard was, I asked an old man one time that had some time in the program, I said, what's the one thing, if you were to tell a young man what to do, what's the most important thing about this program, Alcoholics Anonymous? He said, every morning I get on my knees and I ask a power greater than myself, whom I choose to call God, to guide my actions today. And so I've done that every day since he told me that. And my life's pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect by any means, because I don't believe there's a perfect life. If you find a perfect life, you need to write a book about it, because you'll make all kinds of money, you know. But my life is so much better today because I have friends. I have, you know, it's so unusual. When I went to get my Social Security, I got my VA disability first, and I signed up for both of them the same day. But when I went to the Social Security office for the first time, this girl asked me, she said, how many jobs have you had? I said, ma'am, you need to put that into the computer. She said, I'll do that, don't worry. 2.5 hours later, 75 jobs had spit out of their little deal with my name on it, okay? So this being volunteering here at La Sig is the longest job I've ever had. I've been here 9 years, okay? This is the longest job I've ever had in my life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't have done that if I hadn't got sober and clean.
Right.
Like I say, my life's not perfect, but I do believe that today I live a productive life, and I do something besides drugging and drinking. I do make meetings every week. Used to go to NA. I don't go to NA very much because we don't have an NA. We do have an NA here, but I just don't go to it. I don't know why, but I just don't. But the AA, I go to AA once a week, and keep my prayers. I make sure that if there's anybody that needs help, I'm there for them. You know, this is an action deal. This is not, you can't sit around on your laurels because what you did yesterday may not keep you sober today.
Right.
You've got to work today for today. And the first thing I do, like I say, is get on my knees and ask God if He would please control my actions today,
Right.
so that I don't do that terrible stuff that I used to do. No, I don't have a wife. Love you say, man, why aren't you married? Because I don't want to be.
Right.
I wasn't very good at that when I was drinking, and I'm not any better at it. I've had one wife since I've been sober, and we're divorced. So I just don't think I'm very good at that. I better do something else, you know.
Right.
And I have a feeling that my higher power, if He wants me to have something like that, He'll give it to me.
Right.
I won't have to worry about it. It'll just stumble over me, or I'll stumble over it, you know. Anyway, you know, it's neat, but I can sit like this for a period of time and talk about it.
Right.
Where before, there's no way I could have sat here and talked to you about either my post-traumatic stress or my alcoholism and drug addiction.
Right.
There was no way I could talk about it. And today, it doesn't bother me that bad. Does it not bother me because I'm not doing it? Yeah, drugs and alcohol. But I still have post-traumatic stress. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with a panic attack.
Right.
But I don't have to go running down the street waking up the whole neighborhood.
Right.
You know?
Because you understand what it is now.
Yes, I have a knowledge of what it is. And I've been to a couple of programs with the VA, and they teach us coping skills and stress management.
Because you're a Vietnam vet.
Yes, I served aboard the USS Kennedy in the Tonkin Gulf in the South China Sea. I was never land-based,
Right.
but I was considered a Vietnam veteran. Yeah. Now my brother Jimmy, one just older than me, he served in the 82nd Airborne, and he was actually land-based. He was a combat veteran.
Right.
So mine was a little bit different. But what is it? All give some gave all.
Right.
So, and my brother died of a heart attack. My older brother died of a heart attack, and I believe that was from his post-traumatic stress that he never addressed.
Right.
I helped him get his disability because I got mine before he did, and but he never would go for any kind of treatment, you know. So
Yeah.
I believe a heart attack killed him. PTSD killed him.
Yeah.
And he's just as much a casualty of Vietnam as anybody was, you know. But I'm glad I got treatment. I'm glad because today I can live a somewhat, I put big quotes around that, somewhat normal life. I'm not sure what normal is, are you?
No.
So I'm not going to, what was the guy told me?
We all have a different view of a normal life,
what
for
normal,
sure.
What normal is, yeah. I was telling you the other day, and I told you wrong. What a guy told me one time was, you know what normal is? And I said, no. And he said, that's a man and a woman that buy their kid a whistle and then whip his ass for blowing it. So I don't know that I want to be normal.
Right,
I think it'll
that's
be
right.
better for me to be just the way I am. Because, you know, I remember when I was drinking and drugging, I was not happy. Never, okay? I could get high and pass out, but I was never happy.
Right.
And today I can truly be happy with what I am and who I am and where I'm going. Who knows where that's at, you know? But I'll tell you one thing. I text my kids and they text me back.
Right.
And I think if I'd have continued drinking and drugging, they would have never texted me back. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
How many years have you been clean and sober?
22.
22
April
years.
19th was 22 years. And I drank and drugged for 22 years. You know, they tell you in the program that about the time you start drinking, which was 14, is when your emotional growth stops. Well, I'm thinking with 22 years sobriety, I'm about 16 now.
Right.
Maybe I'm 16, you know. We just don't realize what damage we do to ourselves over those years, and especially emotionally. And then we attack everybody emotionally, too. You know, I'm miserable, and I want you to be miserable.
Well, at 14, you feel like you're going to live forever.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
you
you
don't
are.
realize it until the age.
Because 66 is forever.
Right.
I mean, let's face it. I'm 66 today, and, I know my mortality. My dad told me a long time ago, he said, nobody gets out of this world alive. And, he was right, because he didn't. He died.
Right.
So I'm going to die too. And but I'm going to die sober.
Right.
I don't have all that stuff on my breath, and I don't have that drugs in my system. And, a lot of people say, well, what's going to happen when we leave here? They ask me that question. And I don't know. What are you asking me for?
Right.
There's a lot of churches that'll tell you, go to one of them,
Right.
I do know this. I'm not going to be drunk or high when it happens.
Right.
And that's all that really matters to
Absolutely.
me. I like myself today. I can shave and look in the mirror, and I can look you in your eyes, where I couldn't do that before.
Right.
Wasn't able to, simply because I didn't like me. And you're not going to like me either, see. And I wouldn't go let anybody get close to me to like me, because,
Right.
hey, you might find out I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Boy, that would be terrible, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Come to find out, they already knew it anyway. Most people already knew it,
You thought that you were concealing it very well, but it wasn't working.
No. Yeah. That's a real conception that people have about alcoholism, that, everybody knows you're the town drunk, or whatever you want to be called. I mean, I don't know what you're called, but I remember that too, the town drunk. We had some here in DeQueen when I was a kid, and there's not one time when I saw one of those guys staggering down Main Street did I say, Mom, I want to be just like him.
Right.
But that's how it turned out,
Yeah.
So it's we've got to get a grip on this thing, and we've got to learn that we're just human beings, and human beings make mistakes, and drugs and alcohol is a part of making a mistake. Okay. Another thing, this thing sneaks up on you. You don't just become an alcoholic because you had the first drink.
Right.
It takes a long time to become an alcoholic, and some of us are good at it, some of us are not.
The afternoon that man come into the bar and wanted to invite you to AA, and you went to AA with him, was it just the feeling of knowing that others were going through the same thing you were going through? I mean, what stood out the most?
Well, I'd been
and
to AA during treatment. Different treatment programs. I'd been to AA, so I knew what it was. I guess what happened is God said, "You said I'm going to stop you.
Right.
Here it is. Be careful what
He
we ask
put you
for."
in the hands of the right people that reached out and touched you emotionally.
Or at that moment, I
Right.
realized for the first time that I've truly got to start doing something about this.
Right.
Because I started out drinking thinking, well, I've been drug addict for 8 years, and I haven't been drinking very much. And maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I'm just a drug addict. So if I
Right.
quit the drugging, everything's going to be all right. And so that's why I got drunk, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that night I felt, when he came in and I left with him, I really felt that God had said, this is it, buddy. You either go in there and you get something out of this, because if you drink again, I'm going to kill you. I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done with you. This is it. I think that was it. And I took that information and walked with it and ran with it. People say, well, why does he get to get sober and I don't? I don't know. It's none of my business.
You made that choice.
Yeah, those are things that you have to figure out. And if you'll get sober and stay sober for a while, all that'll fall into place. You won't have to ask those questions anymore, because you'll know. We can't hear until we can hear, and we can't see until we can see.
Right.
It's just all there is to it. And people say, well, why don't you go away? A lot of people ask me, say, why don't you go to the jail and talk to somebody? I done been in jail. I know what that's all about. I don't need to go up there and talk to them. Come to a meeting on Sunday night. I'll talk to you for hours.
Right.
Okay? But I'm not going up there and doing it, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking AA into the jail. That isn't what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's not for me.
Right.
I might actually find something I like up there, and I don't want anything to do with liking jails. Okay? I like my life the way it is today.
Right.
So, yeah, it's so unusual that when you look back at your life and how wrecked it was, and you come forward and stay sober for many, many years, you go, there's no way I lived that, but you did.
Right.
And you have to keep that first and foremost in your mind. You know, people say, well, you got 22 years, why do you need to go to meetings? I'm closer to a drink than you are. You just got sober 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right.
You already know, you remember what it's like. I may have a hard time remembering. That's why I have to keep it foremost in my mind and say those prayers every day. Because that's what keeps
One day
us.
at a time.
One day at a time. That's another thing, too. A lot of people think, well, what do you mean, one day at a time? Well, that's all you're going to get.
Right.
God gives us one day at a time. He can give us a week, gives us a day at a time.
Yep.
And it should be that way. Because, see, I can't handle any more than a day at a time. I can barely handle the day sometimes.
Yeah.
So why do I want to buy those troubles?
For
you know?
sure.
Now, sure, we all have goals, wants, like a vacation or something we want to do or whatever. That's okay to have a goal, but live today. The reason it is called the present is because it's a gift.
Right.
Live right now, the moment you're in. Nothing else matters. And really, when we get to where we can do that, we get really, really happy. You know? Back when I was an alcoholic and drug addict, I always thought I was controlling everything because I had a power. That alcohol and that drugs gave me a power. And I really thought I was controlling things. And when I came to the program Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned that, you know what? Relax. You can't control anything. There's nothing that you have control over. So I learned to relax and just let it be.
Yeah.
Whatever happens today is fine. That's amazing. That's a concept that without it, we go crazy.
We just have to learn to accept it because it's going to happen.
Well, yeah,
Life
that's
is
a
going to
given.
happen.
And everybody says, well, what about God's plan? I don't know about that.
Right.
But I know he does have a plan, and I better get in it because his plan's the one that's going to work.
That's right.
One guy used to be in AA, and he'd tell me, he says, you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. Because you have no control.
Right.
You have no control.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd have found that many years ago. But that's another thing. People say, well, why did you get sober then? I don't know. I can't really tell you why I got sober then. It was God's plan, and that's the way he wanted it, and that's the way it's been. And I've got to accept that. Acceptance is the key to all things.
Right.
You know, so, or that's how I look at it today. I didn't accept nothing back when I was, you know. If the cops stopped me in Nowata, Oklahoma at 3 o'clock in the morning, it was because they were watching me, right? Yeah, it couldn't be that I was drunk and weaving all over the road, you know. It was just they were watching me and they were picking on me, you know.
Yeah.
Because I was a bad boy. So, and I had to learn that they weren't picking on me, that it was my actions that started. And we have to admit that. There's a lot of people can't admit that, you know. But anyway, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Don. You've got a great story.
Well, you know, a lot of people say, well, what do you do when you go up there in AA? And I said, we share our experience, strength, and hope. And they said, well, how do you do that? I just tell my story.
Right.
That's it.
And
I can't
hopes
do
that
anything
your
else.
story will help someone else.
Yeah, just hope that, you know, the only thing that I can give you today is hope.
Right.
That's it. I can't give you anything else. Even if you wanted something very, very small, I can hope that you get it.
Right.
And I can give you that hope. But I can't give you that thing.
Right.
You got to go get it.
Absolutely.
And we alcoholics are such hard-headed people. We will do the same thing over and over and over and just keep doing it, you know? I don't know how many times I went to the line when I was younger to have a good time. And, of course, a fight would break out every time, and I'd be in the middle of it, and I'd end up in jail, you know. I told a friend of mine one time, what I should have done was not go to the line. I should have just gone up to the jail and checked myself in because it's been a heck of a lot easier than going through all
Saved
that.
a few bumps and bruises,
Right.
too.
Yeah, it gets too hard to heal when you get older, too. So,
Well, thank you very much, Don.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Dee. I'm the host of the Shattered Podcast. Please like, subscribe, And don't forget to hit the bell on the notifications so you won't miss an episode. I'm very passionate about helping families. If you are an expert that would like to help or would like to share your testimony, please contact me. Thank you.